Okay, so my name is Allison. I'm the director of social work at the Penn Memory Center, and I'm very excited to welcome you back to this year's iteration of Empowering Caregivers. This is an annual lecture series we do where we try to talk about advanced or more specialized topics in caregiving. We have a great video library on our website under programs and services. You can go to Empowering Caregivers Workshop um, and um, and scroll down to the bottom of the page for the video library. I'm going to ask everyone to please keep their microphones on mute the whole time. If someone unmutes themselves, I'm going to have to go right and unmute you, and that's so we can make sure we can all hear Chris. Chris is going to ask for participation via the chat. Um, so the chat button is at the very bottom of your screen next to participants. It's the fourth button from the left, and you can put a chat in there. You can either send it to everyone or you can send it just to me, and I will read it anonymously to Chris. So without further ado, I want to introduce Chris Burba. Um, Chris helps individuals in the greater Philadelphia area age in place and live their best lives in two ways, preventing frailty and making home safe. He's an occupational therapist, a certified aging in place specialist, and a Mayo Clinic trained health and wellness coach. Burba founded Integrative Aging in Place, providing health and wellness coaching focused on well aging, and co-founded Boast Home Management, coordinating home modifications for safe living. Previously, he supported seniors through Mercy Life and Penn Medicine at Home. He's also a second generation care partner, following in the footsteps of his mother, Marge Burba, who founded Winter Growth in 1979. Outside of work, Burba is an ultra marathoner, wow, and triathlete, often seen on the trails of Wissahickon Valley Park. That's pretty impressive. I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
All right, thank you. That's a wonderful introduction. Yeah, I completed my first 50-mile run last November. If you can imagine running for just shy of 13 hours, but I got it done. Um, well, thank you. That's such a nice introduction. I have an intro page here. I can just sort of blow past it. But yeah, I mean, just a little bit about me. Why do I have any credibility to be here? My roots were working with older adults. My mom founded Winter Growth in our living room when I was 5 years old, and the name of her company comes from a Camus poem from the line, I found that there was within me, I found in winter there was within me an eternal summer. And that's just such a beautiful line. And so, yes, I grew up in that world. I had more friends in their 80s than kids my own age growing up. Worked there on and off. Made a big change and went into journalism and finance. I was in Tokyo and Hong Kong and London for a while, but eventually decided that's not what I'm on this earth to do. So I went back and reinvented myself when my kids were yay high, going back to school to become an occupational therapist. And I am absolutely living my best life. I'm doing what I love. There's just nothing better. I really have a passion for helping people age in place. And so I started my first company, Integrative Aging in Place, a couple years ago after Mercy Life and Penn. But what's been very exciting is in addition to that, I've been able to partner with someone who has a ton of experience in construction and remodeling and also really has a passion about serving our community in Philly and outside Philly. So that's what we do with Boast Home Management is go in and look at remodeling and home modification that's really tailored to individuals and families. So let's kind of dive in. Like I said, we'll blow past the intro page. So what are we looking to get out of today? I This will not be so exhaustive that we answer every question you have. I'm sure of that it's just far too much to cover. What I really hope you may come away with is a frame of reference, how to think about it. above all, that really I think is the most important thing. Aging in place is a very, very big decision. It can have a lot of challenges. It can have a lot of great rewards, but most importantly, how do we think about it? And what are the right questions to be asking? I offer this framework. It's a twofold path about the person and the environment. The idea being aging in place really requires addressing both of those aspects and the intersection of the two. Um, the example I like to give to make it concrete, let's get out of the abstract as much as we can. Best example is we can do the best home modification possible, remodel a home so beautifully. If the individual does not take care of themselves, stay strong, eat well, sleep well, manage stress, you still could have a fall. It's about both, and it's not all about falls, but that's certainly a big topic. So that's the idea is you have to take care of yourself and make home safe. It's really both of those paths. Okay. So starting off with person. So can everybody, yeah, that came up. All right. That face just really cracked me up when I saw it. So these are some of the most common, or these are the most common challenges related to aging. This is from Centers for Disease Control, which a lot of the info on this presentation came from. Chronic conditions, chronic pain, decreased mobility, falls, social isolation, depression, cognitive changes. What I want to emphasize is the interconnectedness of all of these. There's almost no way to address one of these challenges without considering all the others. If somebody does have decreased mobility, there's a good chance that's related to some kind of a health condition. Similarly with pain, if there's chronic joint pain, is that arthritis? How do we then look at treating arthritis? Depression and social isolation so often go hand in hand. I'm sure a lot of us here are familiar with all of the evidence coming out about the association between loneliness and health. So social isolation is absolutely a condition, and it is something to address. And I know for a lot of us here with this audience, cognitive changes is a big challenge. And I will just take a quick moment to say this presentation is really a general talk about aging in place. Um, it is not specifically tailored to dementia. However, later on in the presentation, I do want to take a moment to talk about that area specifically. I definitely have a lot of experience working in that space. I'm a certified independent consultant for dementia care, in addition. So we are going to touch on some of those, and there will be time for questions specifically. So I just want to point that out. Okay, so how do we think about some of these challenges? Those are the most common chronic conditions we see in the United States. And again, from the CDC. I want to just slow down right on this slide and offer a thought. If 93% of us, 65 and older, have at least one of these things going on, do we really still think of it as disease? Do we really think of it as something went wrong? Or is it just that we're getting older? Could we call it getting olderitis? Something's going to happen, right? I like to point out it's a really interesting conversation right now happening in the aging care space about how if you look back 100 years, the most common causes of death back then were infectious disease, tuberculosis, pneumonia, influenza. That has changed dramatically. We've solved a lot of those problems. Well, so now we look at chronic conditions, absolutely still want to address them and treat them. But do we really, I just would offer that as something to chew on. Do we really think about it as disease at all? Or it's just part of aging and then it's something to be managed? Uh, I find that to be a very important topic because I think we can spend a lot of time suffering if we treat these conditions as a problem to be fixed instead of treating these conditions as just part of life. And life always has things to manage. So it's a subtle difference, but I think it's a very important one. So here's OTs. One thing I love about my training as an OT is we always bring everything back to function. We try not to spend too much time in that over medicalized way of thinking and get right to function. How hard is it for you to stand up from a chair? How hard is it for you to take a shower? Can we do anything to make that better? So, just the next couple of slides are just a couple of examples to show how a health condition impacts function and also how interconnected everything is, like we talked about just a moment ago. So with COPD, you can, this is, I know this slide looks like it's all over the place, but it's kind of meant to. Less endurance, if you have less endurance now, when you're halfway up the stairs, you have to take a break to catch your breath. Difficulty with self-care. Do we now need an aid? Less physical activity. You can have kind of a feedback loop when it's harder to move, then we are more sedentary. The more sedentary we are, the more difficult it gets to exert ourselves. And then less movement. I'm just such a big believer in there's plenty of evidence to show that not moving our bodies is just not good for our mental health. So, and it can lead to obesity as well. And so similarly, I always really like to include looking at mental health. It often doesn't get the attention that it deserves. How depression is it's not separate from physical health because it's just so interconnected. If we have someone, and especially as we get older, it can be a real challenge. Someone with depression may not want to move as much. That can lead to joint stiffness, that can increase fall risk. You could now have an injury, right? So this is all what we mean by saying when we look at the person. Um, though we do want to take steps to address these things as, even separate from environmental modification. What are we doing to manage life, to manage conditions, to manage these challenges? And actually, I would love, because I do want to get everybody involved here, if even if you just put a yes or a Y in the chat, how many of us out there in the audience have at least one of these or another condition? I just want to get a sense here. If you could throw something in the chat, and if I can see the chat, where are we? Okay. Whoops.
We're getting lots of yeses.
Lots of yeses. Okay. Yeah, that's what I figured. So, but let me take another moment just to say I kind of I'm interested in what you all think. Yeah, it's kind of funny to me giving these presentations, and I'm supposed to be the expert, but you guys know so much more than I do about growing older and how that can be. Is it helpful to think about it as this is just part of growing older instead of thinking about it as, oh, I have this awful problem that needs to be fixed because I'm broken? Because that thinking doesn't seem kind. Is that helpful?
Okay, people are saying yes, it's helpful. I also want to say a few people to your first question said not yet or no, which I think is a good way of thinking about it. We also got a comment from someone that said, I once was diagnosed with depression, but my routine of exercising each morning has helped tremendously, which is awesome to hear. But yeah, a lot of yeses, looks like one or two no's, but most people find that to be a helpful framework.
Okay, good. Just curious. And I love hearing that about the exercise. Exercise is medicine. There's some primary care providers now who actually write scripts for exercise. I think it's great. Okay. So let's move this along. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of a quick look at chronic conditions. We're going to come back to it. When we looked at that page with the various challenges of aging, I wanted to highlight two of those areas, one being chronic conditions and two being fall risk, because those are really two of the most important areas. So going on to moving toward fall risk, just a few quiz questions. And I would love it if people could venture a guess into the chat, and then let's just see what everybody thinks. What do you think? 15, 25, 50%. How many people 65 or older have a fall? And Allison, feel free to shout out what you're seeing.
Seems pretty split between B and C.
Okay. All right. So it is 25%. Every year, 65 or older. And in my world, fall prevention is a very big part of what I look at. We would always talk about it, though the therapist would say even one fall is too many. We don't want injuries because one fall can really be life-changing. If you have osteoporosis, you're at a higher risk of a fracture. We want to avoid that as best we can. So going on to the next one, of people who fall, what percentage require medical attention or cannot perform a daily task for at least one day? What do people think?
A lot of people are choosing B.
Okay, it's actually A, but it's kind of close actually. It's 37%, but that's over a third. Um, so I want to just make another pause here. I didn't want to overload this presentation with a lot of statistics. I'm more interested in kind of sharing thoughts and even some stories with you. So the story that I come to here is one that's close to my heart that is a hard one. And I also don't want to share scare stories. This should be more positive about people feeling empowered and in control. But I did have, just as an example, I had a client I was working with on fall prevention, and he really, really did not look good on the stairs. He had a big time mobility deficit related to a stroke and a couple of other things. And it looked very clear that either moving down to a first floor, ground floor bedroom, converting a dining room into a bedroom, or at least having a stair glide would be good, would be good to prevent falls for him. He really, really insisted on continuing to use the stairs, talked about how it was great exercise, and that's true. Stairs actually are very good exercise. It's always weighing risk against reward. Unfortunately, he just would not kind of come to that, and he did end up having a fall and a hip fracture, and he had to leave home. He had to go into a facility, and that is so sad to me. He's a lovely person, and it was very hard to see that. So small changes. I'm gonna later on. I want to come to this theme about being adaptable and accepting change because that's a case where one small change really could have been life-changing for him and kept him going. So it was too bad. Okay. Uh which rooms think of the three rooms in which most falls occur. And by the way, most emergency department visits due to falls are associated with falls that happen in the home, not as many outside. So in the home, what are the three rooms in which most falls happen, do you think?
All right, we're getting some people choosing multiple letters. Um, we're getting B, D, E, ACE, ABC, ACE. Really all combos, Chris. You might
Okay.
just have to
Good.
one from scratch.
That's great. No, that's good. So the three most common did I say, I don't know why I put 50% in the bathroom. I probably left that in. It's bedroom, bathroom, and stairs. So I will tell you, and that it's funny because that's where I spent a lot of my time working with people, probably mostly bathroom and stairs. It bathrooms, if I'm not mistaken, are the highest. It's just things like getting in and out of a tub shower, on and off a toilet. As we get older, the ability to lift a leg up, lift a foot up, like we would call the therapist would call that hip flexion, which if you got to get your foot up and over a tub wall, that ability decreases if you don't continue to strengthen. It usually is not enough just to walk. There has to be some strengthening component. The less and less we're able to lift a foot up like that, the greater the chance is that you're gonna trip. You're not gonna get up there. You might even trip on a door threshold. So that's something to consider. Bathrooms are they really are kind of a big one. And we're gonna look at some photos of that later. Okay. What do you think? True, false? Low vitamin D reduces bone density, increasing risk of fracture. True or false?
Okay, lots of people saying true.
Yeah, good. That is true. Definitely. So this is an interesting one. It it's a really good what? It's a good example of how getting to regular medical appointments can be so important and asking. It's absolutely fine to ask your primary provider. I'm worried about, I would like to know what my vitamin D level is. I've never had it tested. I want to know what my bone density is. Asking about osteoporosis, should I be concerned about that? Osteopenia is what precedes osteoporosis. I have done this myself, looked at what nutrients do I absorb and not, and do some supplements. But that's an entirely separate conversation. But those resources are there for you. Okay, to find out. Okay, this is a big one. Um, Polypharmacy often is kind of left out of conversations about fall risk, but it is easily one of the single most important topics. So, what do you think? What qualifies as polypharmacy? More than 2, 4, 6, 8, 10? What is that definition? What do people think?
Okay, we're getting pretty mixed answers here again, Chris. So a lot of people saying A and B, but then some people really going for it with C through E.
Okay, so another mix. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's actually good. I mean, that's why we're here, is to learn some of these things and what questions to ask, how to think about all that. The answer is B. Anything over 4 medications qualifies as polypharmacy. Let's just take a moment to give some context to that. I want to be abundantly clear. That doesn't necessarily mean, I'm sure a lot of us here are on more than 4 medications, and there's good reason for it. Um, I'm absolutely not recommending you stop taking any medications. I would throw out there, if you're on a lot, again, this is another one that it can be a question for a primary care provider. I'm on 8 medications. Is there any concern? Are you aware of any interactions between them that could cause dizziness, that could cause fatigue, difficulty concentrating? Um, there are certain types of medications that have those side effects. Asking about that, look, you can ask for a medication review. We also call it a medication reconciliation. We did this at Penn Medicine all the time, and it was really for this reason. They have an incredibly high standard of care. Um, so I just want to put that out there as a question. You can ask your primary or any doctor, are any of my medications on the beers list? BEERES list. This is a list that's pretty widely accepted in the aging care space that highlights medications that can increase fall risk, can have sedating effects. And especially, it's worth considering that as we get older, our body's ability to process and expel medications, it really slows down. And there's always, there, well, rather, there can be a concern taking too high a dose, too high a frequency, too many. Are they all staying in our system for such a long time that it starts to impact function? So this is going to be, again, it's not about giving you an answer. It's about giving you a question to ask. Is it something to think about? But I would really, really stress that medication is a very big part of fall risk and prevention.
Hey, Chris, we have a few questions in the chat related to that.
Sure.
Um, so one question is, do you incorporate supplements in that count?
Oh, boy, that's a good question. Absolutely. That is really something you want to ask your primary about. I know when I worked at Penn Medicine at home, which was all in-home care, helping people age in place. That was absolutely part of our process. We wanted to know, and we, as therapists, nurses, anybody who was providing care in the home, we would ask people, not just prescriptions, we want to know what your supplements are. Uh, some supplements may have interactions with your prescribed medications. So that is absolutely something to ask about. And also make sure your primary knows what supplements you're taking. They may not know. And it often doesn't come up. So you want to mention it like, hey, if we're gonna, I do have a couple questions about medications. I want you to know I am taking these. Is that okay? Is there anything I should know about? Great question.
Someone else, this might be a little outside your wheelhouse, but if you have thoughts, someone else is saying, I'd like to hear more about supplements, especially those pushed on TV for memory.
All right. Wow, that's a big one.
I have some thoughts on that.
You know what? I was gonna say I might speak for 10 seconds, and Allison, I think I'm gonna welcome your thoughts on that. Uh, I'm just gonna send a very, very big, clear message. So I I am relentlessly, rigorously evidence-based and data-driven. I don't trust anything if there's not evidence. Full disclosure, I always like to be very transparent here with people. Yeah, I do take supplements. I only started taking supplements after I went to a doctor and got blood work done that showed, Chris, you're not absorbing, vitamin C, B12, magnesium, and you don't have enough omega-3 fats. I got the blood work done first, and we pieced together a plan. To me, that's good practice. But given that this is specific to like memory supplements, I actually would really appreciate Allison's input.
So I just want to say I'm not anti-supplement. Supplements are great. I'm wondering if this person is referring to things like Prevagen that I see commercials for online, which to echo Chris, just does not have a solid evidence base. Um, that being said, if you go to your PCP and you say, "Hey, I want to take this," and they can take a look at the actual, ingredients or what is in the drug and say it's safe for you to take, it's probably not going to be harmful, but you want to go into it with reasonable expectations that you're probably not going to see major changes. And I think you also want to think about the other factors related to buying a drug like this online. Can you afford it? Um, could you be spending your money on something that's going to more tangibly affect your quality of life, like making modifications to your home, for example, or like hiring a caregiver for some respite care? Because these are also very, very expensive. Um, and I think they prey on people's vulnerability. That being said, it's something to do and it might be helpful to you. It just doesn't have a strong enough evidence base for me to recommend it.
Great. And I'm piggybacking that, I would really highlight what Allison said about other aspects, home modification. I mean, honestly, my understanding, physical exercise is really one of the single best bodies of evidence we have right now. Some of you may be aware dementia is now more and more being conceptualized as a circulatory problem. Now, this could be a very long conversation that we won't have time for right now, but even the possibility, again, we don't know yet. Even the possibility that, like with Alzheimer's, when we talk about the plaques and the tangles, that actually is more of a symptom than a cause. The cause may have a lot more to do with blood circulation, and the best way to manage that, improve it, is there's just no substitute. It's physical exercise. Eating well, sleeping well, stress management, physical activity. I mean, Allison, I welcome if there's anything to correct me, but if I have that, is that consistent with your understanding?
Yeah, I think there's mixed feelings depending what academic center you're at.
Okay.
Um, I want to add one thing in the chat. Someone is saying, and Chris, you kind of touched on this from a personal standpoint. I'll try to not only know about supplement interactions, but also the understanding the importance of time taken in relation to, I'm assuming, other drugs or other supplements, etc. So I guess the timing and usage and actual instructions behind the taking of the supplements.
Yeah, there's no question. And I will tell you, in my time at Penn, we frequently address that. There was one, it's really honestly, it's one of the best things about Penn Medicine at home, because we would very have direct access to a doctor's office if we noticed something in the home, and we would think, you know what, you're taking like three or four of these all in the morning and you seem to be really lethargic. Maybe we can send a question out to have your primary review that and get in touch with you. So that's a great question, and it is absolutely correct. There may be times when altering the timing, when you take it, it can make an impact on your quality of life.
All right. I think that's it for the chat.
Okay. All right. Let's keep moving. Okay. This is just a great slide. So when we do kind of look at fall risk and how to think about it, what to improve, intrinsic factors and extrinsic factors. This fits perfectly in with this idea of a twofold path. It's looking at us as a person and it's looking at our environment. Okay, so I won't say you see everything there in front of you, but fall risk, fall prevention, it falls the risk factors that we always call it multifactorial. That's what all the evidence tells us. There's almost never just one cause. Can be polypharmacy and knee arthritis in the knees. It can be spinal stenosis and not sleeping well. It can be too much alcohol use. It can be a mental health issue that causes impulsive behaviors. It could be a big one is loss of sensation in your feet if you have diabetes. So there's so many different factors, and this is kind of a nice framework for how to think about it. Okay. All right. So we got past that, which I'm happy about because it's so important to me that this does not feel like a lot of doom and gloom. There are some great things about getting older. I hope some of you feel that way. I know in all my time, I work with people who are older because I love it, because I love hearing the stories. I love hearing the hard parts. I love being there in the tough moments. But this is one of my favorite slides here because it's great. People my age, I think 40 in the United States, 40 or thereabouts, is the worst age to be alive. That really makes me laugh. It's squarely sandwich generation years. I'm 50 this year. I generally feel pretty good. I think I had my low years probably when I was in graduate school trying to, raise two young kids. I used to have a full head of hair before graduate school. So anyway, there are some really great aspects about growing older. the why at the bottom, and this I have to find my citation there for where this came from, which I have. But I love looking at the bottom because I see these aspects with my own clients, and I think there's so much I could learn from this person, from my own mom, my other family members. So I just really wanted to highlight that even though there are all of these challenges with aging, there's also resilience and empathy and compassion and some great things that make us strong. Okay, so right back, this is just a repeat slide of all of these challenges that we deal with as we age. But I wanted to put it back up with a happy face on it so we can think about it as things that we can manage. We're not broken. We're just not. We just have challenges that we should manage. Management is kind of the magic word. Okay. All right. Now, I'll say so in terms of moving from the problem to the solution, chronic condition management. Getting to medical appointments regularly. Don't miss your screenings. Manage your medications right. Sleep stress management. Some of this stuff sounds a little cliche because these days we're bombarded with news and social media about, this is the latest pill. This is what you should be eating. I wouldn't be following any of those trends or fancy diets or whatever, but I would be talking to your doctor about, okay, what do I need to do? Talking to your therapist, whoever it might be. Wellness does matter. It'll impact your quality of life. The longer you can stay mobile and physically active, the happier you'll be, the longer you'll live. Health span in addition to lifespan, we like to talk about. So, how many years can we get that we're still doing the things that we love to do? That's such a big part of aging in place. Okay. Just a few examples here. How are we managing chronic pain? Are we getting more sedentary? Because it may be less pain in the moment, but that may make pain worse, in long term. We do need to move. Positioning is a big one. Energy conservation, not doing too much at once, perhaps. Depends on, how you're put together. Okay. And kind of move through these, but with cognitive changes. Um, I will say I kind of highlight cognitive changes. It's a little harder, and I'm sure a lot of you would agree with that. I think managing, cognitive changes in some ways it's just a lot harder than like a heart condition, arthritis. There's just more involved, and I want to acknowledge that. So mobility, trouble, and fall risk. So here, just all these things. But again, going through these slides a little quickly, it's kind of meant to show how they're so interrelated. You're going to see some of the same things up there about sleep, nutrition, hydration, medication management for each of these different challenges. It all really basically comes back under an umbrella of well aging. Yeah, and psychosocial well-being. Again, you're seeing a lot of the same aspects up there. So the point of all that is to say we can manage it. We have all these challenges related to aging, but we can manage it. It takes effort. It takes getting to work. That's what I do as a coach, is help people kind of map that out, come up with plans, and get up and start moving and taking charge of your wellness. Okay. All right. Other considerations. So with this slide, it's this kind of could have gone with the person or environment, but these are some other considerations that really are very important when it comes to aging in place. Transportation to appointments and what you like to do. Home health aides, non-medical home health aides are often not covered by insurance. So thinking about that, a medical alert system, like a life alert, shopping, managing appointments. Do you have family close by? What are your support networks? When we're thinking about aging in place versus like an assisted living, these are some really, really important topics to consider. Okay. All right. And if I go too fast, we can always come back to one of these slides later on. You guys can just let me know.
Chris, we have a few questions and feel free to say I'm going to get to it later if you're going to get to it later. One question is, why are walkers made so that the handles are so low? So many users now walk slumped over most of the day, which doesn't seem healthy.
Pardon me for laughing. I'm laughing because this was such almost a daily question when I was at Mercy. Mercy Life is a day program and in-home health care. So it's a great question, and it's hotly debated right now because now you have the up walkers where your forearms are up there. The reason that a lot of physical therapists like the traditional walkers with those low handles, the correct height of the handle is if you're standing up, the handle should come to your wrist. If your arms are at your sides, the handle should be at your wrist. If you use the walker correctly, that is biomechanically the best position um, for stability. What the walker is doing is increasing your base of support. Your base of support is every point that touches the ground. The 3 points on each foot, your heel outside of the pinky and right at the ball of your foot, they form triangles. That's your base of support. When you add a walker, it extends that base of support way out, which is great. That's doing what it's supposed to, and that is going to keep you a lot more stable. Should help prevent falls if you have any kind of a balance or weakness issue. Now, the question is a really good question because the problem is a lot of people don't use them the right way. Um, but I don't want to word that as to say it's the person's fault. They may have low back pain. Well, you're going to kind of bend forward a little bit. And when you do that, the walker's going to get out in front of you. And now it's not really terribly safe. And in that situation, an up walker may be better. The research is ongoing on this one. If you do want to consider an up walker, I would just recommend talking to a PT. That's what PTs are great. I absolutely love working with physical therapy. I think PT should be free for everyone because it's so beneficial. So if it's a question, you should talk to a PT, see what they say.
And then the other question is, do you have any suggestions for a medical alert system?
Right. Okay. One suggestion would be talk to your insurer. Um, they sometimes will be covered. I'm trying to remember if Medicaid definitely covers those systems. I don't know if Medicare does, but that might be the first step. Philips Lifeline is a pretty popular brand. We used to go through them. Connect America was another one. Um, your insurer may have a preferred company, and that way it can get covered. If it's not covered by insurance, it's not enormously expensive, but it's a bit.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Sure. Okay. So now we get to environment. I wanted to kind of, again, helping us how to think about this stuff, right? When it comes to home modification, it's enormous. We could be here for days talking about every single detail. And that's literally what I do. I agonize over such detail. You wouldn't even believe it. But we need a framework. We need to know how to think about it. So I broke it down into these categories to help you think about, does anything need to be modified? And we're going to go through examples in each one. I did put that one piece in there though about joy. It's not only about safety. Do you feel joyful living in your home? If you do a lot of work to make aging in place work, you should feel happy. So it's not only safety, it's also function and, being able to have the grandkids run around if you like, what cooking with family, whatever it is. Okay. So exterior, and I want to respect everybody's time and leave some time for questions. Exterior, I would love to open some of these up to the chat. What's good here on these three? Any of these three? Throw a comment in there. Anything you notice that is good or bad with regard to safety and function?
Okay. A few people are saying handrails and railings, night lighting.
Great. Yep, and I'll take the baton. That's both of those are great. Excellent. Lighting.
Stair lift, someone says. I don't know if that.
Okay, yeah, they could be do an exterior stair lift if you needed to. Also, those stairs are not standard height, which I found interesting. I always worry about that because people may trip. You get accustomed to a set, usually a 7 to 9 inch rise, and if we do smaller, it can help, but it can also be a little concerning. Um, if you notice that very wide exterior door on the left, be very easy to get a wheelchair in and out. There's no step up. It's a flat entry. You could go right at the threshold, maybe a little bit of a bump. I would probably want that a bit lower, but it's a very accessible entryway there. And somebody pointed out the lighting. I obsess over lighting because I see so much in my work. It's not appreciated as much as it should be. So good. Okay, let's keep moving. All right. You don't even have to put it in the chat, but if we all just sit with the thought, that picture on actually either one of these pictures probably looks familiar to a lot of us. Probably, I'm sure a lot of us out there may have one room in the house that may not be as bad as that one on the left. Maybe it is, but it may be close. Um, it starts to matter more as we get older. How are you going to get through something like that with a cane or a walker safely? On the right, the one I actually really like the photo on the right because it's not terrible, but it's not good. That we stop our peripheral vision is not as great as it used to be. Distinguishing between foreground and background is not as good as it used to be. So that little bit of clutter that 10 years ago was really nothing to be concerned about, now it is. Small changes. We have to change. We got to kind of change a few things in our environment because we're changing. So we have to accommodate that. Flooring. All right. What is some in the chat? Any thoughts here on either of those photos? Don't worry about like the screwdriver and that, but just look at that threshold. And what about the rug? Any thoughts on either of those?
Okay, people are identifying the rugs, saying rugs cause falls, no rugs, rugs need to be taped down,
Yeah, good. Yep.
threshold needs to be flat.
Yeah, great. Excellent. That's a good
Not,
catch.
yeah, need non-slip pad for rug. Yeah.
Yep, you all said it. I didn't even need to bring it up really. Yeah, if you do have rugs, heavy ones with like, I mean, generally, if you can keep it under about 3/4 inch height maximum is great, but mainly ones that are stable. Really, really big ones are often good. If they're big and heavy, they're much less likely to slide around. That kind of material, that's pretty hard unless you tack it down. So, and yeah, that flush threshold, that's excellent. Less tripping on it. Coming back to what we talked about earlier, the ability to raise the knee up. As that gets more difficult, flatter thresholds are very helpful. But stay strong. You can maintain that strength if you work at it. Okay, lighting. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here on this one. I'm sure you all noticed that very dim light on the left. Uh, as we get older, we literally need as much as 4 times more brightness in order to function well as we did when we were in our 20s. That's let that sink in. That's a pretty big number. So many people that I work with have pretty poor lighting. The other thing I would point out is how do you turn that light on? There's a little string there on a ball, right? Well, does that mean you now have to walk across the entire room in the dark before you can turn it on? That's not a very safe situation, right? So I do generally like overhead lighting. If there is lamp lighting, at least figuring out a way to be able to access it, pardon me, when at the entry to the room. So that's a big one. Okay, that one in the middle, actually both of these next two are particularly relevant to cognitive changes. Why do you think I don't like that one in the middle? Somebody tell me. Just throw a guess out. Be wrong if there's nothing wrong with being wrong, but throw a guess out. I really, really don't like it. Why?
Okay, someone says steps up to the tub, I'm guessing. Someone else says not much contrast.
Yep, both of those. Nailed it. That is all white. And these days in the world, oh, was there another one, Allison? I
Oh,
interrupted.
I was just laughing. Someone made a suggestion, which is that you can hook up your Alexa to your light bulbs, to certain light bulbs, to be voice activated. So he's saying, Alexa, lights on.
Love
Um,
it. That's great. Love
yeah,
it.
great
Excellent.
hack. Good
So
idea.
there you go. You just solved it. And that's a nice saying. No big electrical work, right? I love helping people find ways to do it cheaper. Light touch first. You can even do stick-on LEDs that are battery powered. The light bulb will last 10 years. And then you don't have to do any electrical. It's $40 versus like 600. So, yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, that lack of color contrast, my head explodes. This is particularly important when it comes to dementia. Um, our ability to process just gets harder. Uh, when you combine that with the steps, it's a complete train wreck. Like this one would have me up at night. Now, then you have the one on the right. That's too much to process. That picture on the wall is so busy. And then the throw pillows, the couch, it's a lot of textures. We really don't want that. And when someone is living with dementia, it's very busy. That can create a lot of stress and also confusion. It can contribute to confusion. It gets harder. Some of you may see this, I'm sure, with the people you care for. Sometimes it gets harder to understand, what is this room for? Why am I in here right now? What am I supposed to be doing? In my work as a coach, I always like to tell people a big part of what I do is to help life make sense. Because with dementia, that gets harder. And that I love having that role. It's really very meaningful to me. But the environment is a huge part of that. So much remove the noise, remove the amount of information that individual needs to process. The other point, the glare on the floor is pretty terrible. That's a big risk factor with for falls. Okay. So lighting, texture, and color. Accessibility. I love that. And I apologize. I'm going to go ahead and jump in for these next couple because I want to respect your time. That bathroom on the left, I love it. That's a roll-in shower. It has grab bar. You're either at a wheelchair level or walker level. There's a bench that could easily be taken out if you needed to for a wheelchair. There's plenty of room. Always keep in mind room for the caregiver. When people do some remodels and they do small stall showers, walk-in showers, they often forget to consider that the home health aide needs to have some room. Wheel under sink, beautiful. The plumbing is back behind the wall. If the plumbing were down there, we would insulate it to be sure you don't burn your knees when you wheel up to it. And then that kitchen, it's just fabulous. Kitchens can get really hard at a wheelchair level, but there really are some great solutions. Um, that photo kind of combines both accessibility and reachability. The individual is able to reach what they need and wheel under the counter. The counters are wheelchair height. This move, raising shoulder going up to reach heights, that can get harder and cause pain as we get older. So starting to bring things down to counter level can be really good. Reachability. So kind of going off of that same idea there. The one on the left, that woman may be okay doing that now. That's not terribly convenient. But what happens when you start to get rotator cuff trouble, arthritis? That's really not very practical. And when you have arthritis, we talk about joint protection. We want to avoid those movements because it's just going to contribute to the joint degeneration. Just adapt the environment. Even bringing all that stuff down to the counter, it'll make it work. On the left, that's so laundry machines and dishwashers when we're, really functioning well, it's not an issue. But as we get older, if you have spinal stenosis, other kind of back trouble, joint difficulty, bending over to a dishwasher or a laundry machine gets hard. But there are options to solve that. There are drawer dishwashers. They pull out, they're top loading. You can swap out for one of those. You can get a stackable laundry unit and lift it up off the ground, put it on cinder blocks, figure out how you want to do it, but really reducing how much you have to bend forward. Okay. Allison, do interrupt me if I'm blowing by too fast, by the way.
I think you're good, and I just want to let you know, we reserve 12 to 2. So you have 2 hours if you have that time to give, but also use whatever time you have.
Oh, good, good, good. That's great to know. I just wanted to be sure to respect everyone's schedules. So, but that's good because there's a couple more things that I do think would be good to discuss. Dementia. It's hard. It's just, I've been at this enough to know that it's just a little harder, like I touched on before. I really do want to take a moment that I know a lot of you are caring for people with dementia, and my heart is with you. I will share with you this presentation, full transparency, it's a lot less rehearsed than I would like it to be. Why? Because I have a family member with Parkinson's dementia. And we had a crisis last night and this morning, and we've been scrambling. And no complaints, it's what we all do, right? But I'm not only, providing care, I'm also the informal caregiver, and I know how difficult that can be. Um, so just wanted to say that. So hopefully I'm coming across okay. All right. So yeah, I don't, okay. When I go in for my work with Boast Home Management, I will often get an inquiry from an individual who wants me to come out and immediately like, come look at my bathroom. What can I do? Getting a little bit tougher to get in and out of the tub, having a bit more difficulty getting on and off the toilet, but absolutely want a better bathroom. Let's look at the design books. Let's talk about what the latest trends are, maybe, what are our options? And I immediately slow that down. And I'll tell them I don't even want to see the bathroom until we sit down and I want to learn about you. Because I think the vast majority of us want to age in place. That is how we envision our later years going. I definitely want to. My house is going to be terrible for aging in place. If I wanted to make this work, I would have a lot of big, expensive remodeling to do. And I will tackle that at some point. Um, but it's worth taking a moment to be really, really as sure as you can that it's the right way to go. Because it's not always. What would keep me up at night the most, I think I've told Allison this before, it would be my nightmare to go in and do a big expensive remodeling project, only to have somebody decide 6 months later that it would have been better to go to a CCRC, a continuing care retirement community with assisted living. That's a yeah, who would want that, right? So it's worth taking the time to think that through first. I always consult with clients first and then often bring in other resources. I will tell you, in the aging care space, there's no one company, there's no one discipline that can cover everything. It kind of, when I think about my clients, I think, wow, that they probably would love it if they just had one place to go to. It would make it so much easier. That's just not that there's too much to cover. There are too many areas, right? Um, so I will often bring in other resources. If the person doesn't know yet, I have other people to refer them to help think through that. I definitely consult on care planning myself. You guys also have the social work team at Penn Medicine. I mean, come on, it's incredible. So these are some points to consider here. So the big one, cost of aging in place versus a CCRC. It's not an easy question to answer. A CCRC is going to ask for a very big deposit up front, and that is probably many times more expensive than doing a remodeling project or two. That can make aging in place seem like, oh, that's, of course, we'll definitely do that. Like doing a bathroom remodel is like 25% of what this deposit is for this assisted living. Okay, but let's just slow down. That's true. But what is your life going to look like in 2 years, in 5 years? Is it still is it still going to be feasible, right? I will share with you. I don't, I really don't intend to make anything here about me, but I will share a little bit that's because it's real and it may be helpful. This family member of ours who is having a bit of a tough time, it really may have been better, pardon me, a couple years ago or more to have considered an assisted living rather than aging in place. It's in a pretty kind of a difficult spot, way up on a hill. You can't really walk outside safely. Um, the spouse also has some big challenges. So their ability to be a good, reliable caregiver, it's a little bit tough. That one, it probably could have been better to have gone to an assisted living because with dementia, there's just a lot of demand. It's very difficult. I'm the one saying you guys could be saying this more to me than the other way around. But I just want to make sure that anytime people think about aging in place, that you really, really weigh all of these questions. So cost is one. We kind of already kind of started to get into that of like aid services of home aging in place versus assisted living. Consider what's that cost going to look like when it gets to the point of 24-hour care of having aid services come in. It's a great, don't get me wrong, I help people succeed at this all the time. It can be done. I'm just saying you really got to map that out because in an assisted living, there are more resources that are right there and available to help you. Uh, but it's worth considering. And then are you managing schedules of multiple aides? That's not easy. Are you going to a geriatric care manager to help with that? I'm a huge fan of that profession. I think they're extremely helpful with that. So some things to consider. Family support. I can't tell you enough how often we come across this in this space where like the best, most reliable family support is the one who lives in Boston or the one who lives in California, right? Is there a reliable support really nearby? Someone who can get there in 20 minutes or a couple hours, right? Uh, we got to look it in the face and answer these questions and plan it out. What I have seen so much in my practice is making decisions in a crisis. It just is so much harder and more stressful and often doesn't go as well as if we try to be proactive. Get those supports in place before something happens. Okay. Space for a live-in aid. People often don't think about this when they're doing aging in place home modification, but it's kind of a good one to think about because if you are going to age in place, if you are able to create a space for a live-in aide to have privacy, have their own bathroom, I don't know how your home is set up, but if it's an option, that's really great because now you are a more attractive work environment for them if they can have their own private space. If you have a live-in, you're going to be paying them less because you're providing them a place to live. That can bring your costs down. So some cost up front for that can reduce costs later and also make it more likely to find a live-in aid. They're not always so available. Okay. For all the caregivers out there, bless your hearts, compassion fatigue. So often we don't take care of our own wellness. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with families and the primary caregiver will say, "Oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's hard. I just needed to vent a little bit, but thank you for listening to me, but it's really okay." No, it's not. You got to take care of ourselves. The more we take care of ourselves, the better we're going to be for that person. I am such a big fan of systems, plans, schedules. If we don't put it on a calendar on Wednesday, I'm going to get a massage. I'm going to do that like once a month, whatever it might be. On Tuesdays, Mondays, that's my gym day, or that's when I go have a cup of tea with my friend. If it doesn't end up on a calendar, having a system, a set routine, we let it go. And we just saying, I can do it, I can do it. Or when someone else, this is such a big one, I see so much, somebody else offers to help, and we think it would take longer for me to show them what to do than I would get back, so I'll just do it myself. It's just so important. I can't say it loudly enough. Like, yes, it will take longer, but it's the same thing with a kid. If I work with my 8-year-old at cooking something, it's going to take me 2 or 3 times as long. But then in a year, they're much more independent. And now all of a sudden I can breathe a little bit. It's a very similar equation, I think. So emergency preparedness, again, a life alert, having who am I going to? Who's the list? Do I have that list on the refrigerator so that when something happens in the moment, I already know where I'm going? Is it in my contacts at the top or whatever on your phone, whatever it looks like? Knowing ahead of time. Because in that moment, your adrenaline's pumping, your thoughts are all over the place. If it's rehearsed and set up ahead of time, it'll go better. Um, that last one, okay. That last one, I want to just share another anecdote. Um, just a bit from my own experience. How adaptable are you? Um, and then let's just start there with that one. That client that I had, it just broke my heart when he fell down the stairs and ended up in a nursing home because it didn't have to go that way. I so often see in my work, there's, how do you put it? It's very difficult, I think, to do something in a different way because for the past 50, 60, 70 years, we've done it in the way we've been doing it and it's been fine. Why would I need to change? Right? But change is happening, whether we like it or not. I can tell you with literally 100% confidence, the families that I work with who are the most open to change, without exception, are the ones who do better. And that could mean bringing your bedroom down to the ground floor. Oh, it's still fun. I'm still a little unsteady on the stairs, but I can still do it. And I like my bedroom where it is. The light coming in from there is great. I've been in this bedroom for 40 years. I'm not going to change it. Okay, that's a little tough. What happens when you're not as steady on the stairs? Something's going to happen at some point. If you're open to those changes, I really do think, I don't think it, I know. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it so much. Being open to change, doing whether it's a new routine for yourself to take care of yourself, changing your diet, medication, appointments, exercise, or changes to your environment. The more proactive and flexible we can be, the better I think we age. And that last one, better a year early than a day late. It's a mantra for me that I always share with my clients because a day late means something bad can happen and then you're really worse off. A year early, you think I'm fine. I'm not there yet. Okay, yeah, you're probably right. You know yourself better than me, definitely. But we always kind of want to get ahead of that. So being able to make those changes. So I do want to share, I've shared a couple of tough stories, but now I want to share a really great story with you. A client of mine who actually is a patient at Penn Memory Center and has a type of dementia and lives with their spouse. The spouse was really, really open to a lot of changes in terms of wheelchair, type of wheelchair, changing bedrooms, looking at how to get in and out. They've really been doing well. It doesn't change how difficult it is living with dementia. That, of course, is always going to be hard. But the changes that they have made, he went from having literally 2 to 3 falls a week to really no falls. None. for months later. It was really great. She, getting the right aids and getting, 3 shifts of aids as she was able to. I know that's not always possible for everybody. Um, and changing the rooms, all of that. And they've been doing well. They're still doing well. So the feeling I hope that we can all come away from this is that there is a lot within our control. Not everything, but those things that we can control, if we're proactive, if we're open to change, if we're enthusiastic about doing the work to make life good, I really do think people can age and play. Well, yeah, I know because I see it. People can age and play successfully or transition to a situation that's better. So I think that's where I apologize. Usually I have a citations page because that is intellectually responsible, but that's where when I said I didn't have time and it was not as rehearsed. Normally I would have citations of all the CDC and other resources, but I did not get to it. But this is my contact information. I want to send a very loud message. As I said before, no one company, no one person can do everything. So I really, really want you to not hesitate. Absolutely feel welcome to reach out to me. If there's anything I can do, I'm delighted. That I hope it comes through. I absolutely love doing this, and I just love humans. So if I can help, that's great. But if it's not my area, that's fine. Reach out to me anyway, because chances are I will get you in touch with someone who is the right person. So I hope that's helpful. This has been amazing. You're an incredible audience. You participated. I hope this was helpful. And any other questions? I'm not in a hurry. I know I did
Yeah,
run over, but go ahead.
yeah, Chris, we have a few like questions and some comments. First, a lot of people sharing both with the group and with me that they're very sorry for your emergency and they're so appreciative of you taking out the time to do this on what's such a difficult day for you and doing an amazing job. So I echo that. Thank you, Chris, for being there.
Thank you.
Um,
That's very kind.
all right, I'm gonna search for the questions here, and I'm going to leave the comments in the chat unless we have time for them. So the question that I see right now is I'm going to paraphrase a little. My mom is at the point of dementia. She has primary progressive aphasia, which for those of you on the call is a language-based disorder now where she can't really articulate her preferences. She downsized our family home and moved into an apartment 4 years ago, and this move coincided with rapid onset of her dementia. Is there still a benefit of aging in place if she moves her? Okay, so this is the daughter messaging. I'm sorry. If the daughter moves her mom in with her in a house that her mom has never lived in versus assisted living?
Got you. Yeah, then that's definitely a longer conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of how I want to frame the answer to that. It's funny. It depends on so many factors that I probably don't have an answer. I think that's like a consultation.
Yeah.
That we would really map that out. What are the pros and cons? What are the support structures? I would say it's great that you're asking the question because it's the right question. Um, it's just I hesitate to offer any insight steering one way or the other without knowing more about it. I definitely have seen situations like that were successful in terms of aging in place, especially when it's with a family member. Absolutely. I do hesitate to say too much without knowing more.
Yeah, I agree. I will say there's probably, and someone actually replied to you in the chat to say only experience will tell, which I agree with. I think that's a great way to answer that, which is there's probably some guidance you can get through a consultation, but also there's probably not a right answer here.
Yeah, well put.
Um, Okay, here are some just comments that I'll read out, Chris, and you can say if you have any comments. This is one is a little bit of a PSA, which I agree with. Just a bit of advice. Please do not ask your children to promise not to move you into an assisted living facility. No one needs that guilt, especially when care is too much for them to manage or afford.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Someone else, this is another success story. Our remodeling, first floor accessible bath and bedroom, allowed my husband to spend at least 3 years comfortably and safely at home with aides before entering assisted living for the last year of his life.
Ah, love that. What a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's kind of what it's all about. Even if you get 2 more months, 6 more months of, good quality of life, that is a success. That's just wonderful.
Yeah, and I love the way that she phrased that they staved off the assisted living. The assisted living was not some kind of failure. Their needs just changed after those 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Someone else said, when evaluating CCRCs, so continuing care retirement communities, please insist on visiting the skilled care section of the facility. So I think this person is referring to the skilled nursing or nursing home portion of the continuing care community. Some facilities have updated their independent and assisted living sections, but not skilled nursing. And also, some do not require a large upfront deposit.
Oh, good. That's great. I actually didn't know that last piece, so I'm glad to hear that. And if I might piggyback that comment, I know these days, I mean, I really like to speak plainly about these things because everybody deserves to know it. I can tell you from, again, the wide network that I've been building, there is more and more concern about the skilled nursing side of places, not necessarily the long-term nursing home part, but even like short-term rehabs, when it's appropriate to go, when it's not, when, there may be concerns about another health problem. You go in with one problem, you come out with another. I know that's talked about a lot these days. And so I appreciate that comment. I think it's a little bit trickier to make some of those decisions now, and it absolutely makes sense to be doing your due diligence on it.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, just one more question in the chat. This is someone who came in a little late, but I don't remember you covering this. Did you talk about your thoughts about security cameras in the home?
Good question. No, I didn't touch on that. Yeah, so I mean, I'm definitely a fan of it. I know it gets a little tricky to think about that one because, you know, I don't know if you would frame it as like an ethical question, like how does it feel right to not respect my family member's privacy? Um, it, I don't know if I'm answering the exact question, but when a person gets to a point where safety awareness is really impaired, it does become a little clearer, I would say, on how to think about that ethically. Like once you've identified that the person is no longer independent with safety, you're probably doing the right thing by intervening in a way that's going to keep them safe. Excuse me. I know I've had many clients who have done it, and it absolutely has helped, I would say, in my experience. And I can't really share any bad outcomes from it because the only bad outcome would be if it just didn't do anything because the person was okay. But putting it in, there were times when situations where the person actually had a fall and didn't remember and, had pain. But the daughter was able to review it and saw, oh, okay, wait, no, I actually need to go get her checked out. So I do think it can be a good idea. There are some relatively inexpensive options out there. I would also say like an AirTag, an Apple AirTag, or just a phone app that allows you to know where they are. I'm working with a coaching client right now who, for the time being, is actually doing okay out walking around the community on her own, but it's probably going to get to be a bit of a concern soon. And again, be a year early, not a day late. She may not really need that right now, but the family and I both understand what is the trajectory. Um, what could happen if we don't do it soon enough. So again, she probably is okay right now, but I really don't know what it was going to look like in 3 months, 6 months. So let's just go ahead and get that set up now. The other advantage, by the way, it can be really great to have these conversations while the individual is still relatively well, because then you can share with them, when it gets to a certain point, I was thinking about this, it seems like it could help safety. I would never want to do it without getting your thoughts first. Now you've already had that conversation. That can be make it a little easier down the road when you do go to set it up. That's probably very individual. You know your family members better than me. If it would actually put someone off to it and then create a bigger thing, then maybe not. But I do generally lean toward having those conversations earlier, because that way the individual feels empowered. And with brain change, little by little, we just lose control over so much of our lives. So any chance that we have to help that person feel a locus of control can be a real gift.
All right. Well, I think that's all in the chat, Chris. Lots of comments here also saying this was an excellent presentation, very helpful. Thanking you for your time. And again, I want to echo that and say this was awesome. Again, thank you for showing up on what was a very tough day for you. You did a fantastic job. Um, so we will edit this video so that no one's face or name appears, and it will be up on our website within a few weeks. If you are registered for this Zoom recording, you will receive an email from me when the video is up. Our next Empowering Caregivers session is on Friday, October 24th at 12 p.m. It's called How to Read a Research Paper. I know that sounds a little bit dry, but promise me, or I promise you rather, you are in for a treat. This is a talk about understanding research papers and scientific writing with our neuropsychologist, Dr. Emma Rhodes, who many of you have probably gotten testing. She's been in training and now working full time at the Memory Center for many years, studying under Dr. Dawn Mechanic Hamilton. Um, and this presentation was inspired by all of the new innovative research in dementia care that has been coming out over the past year or two, especially with the FDA approval of these two new anti-amyloid drugs. Um, and people expressing to us that they don't know how to tell what is a rigorous scientific experiment versus one that they shouldn't really pay attention to, and just general literacy around reading all of this new information that's being released. So that will be Friday, October 24th at 12 p.m. Um, thank you all for coming, and I hope to see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.